calm, body at ease, breathing quiet, sentiment, benevolent. Dharma friend, still in vital silence, wanting nothing, we practice eco-Buddhism together. The sound of the temple bell booms for all to cease from conflict. May the way of Buddha usher in the dawn of non-violent global village forever. Here is the after sound of the bell. Thunder of silence, light after Dharma rain. Om Amoka Bhairakana Maha Mudra Mani Padma Jabala Pravataya
Please take a moment to straighten your mats and cushions, and then stand facing the altar for chanting of the 3 refuges. So as we stand facing the altar, bringing our hands palm to palm at heart center, a gesture called Hapchang of sincere heart. We will first take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, Sangha in Sino-Korean, in keeping with our tradition, and then a second time in English. So even if you do not know the words of the chant, try to throw your voice in with the sound so you can have some experience of it for yourself.
I go for refuge to the Buddha.
I go for refuge to the Buddha,
And resolve with all beings.
and resolve with all beings.
I will cultivate a heart of enlightenment.
I will cultivate a heart of enlightenment,
And realize the great way.
and realize the great way.
I go for refuge to the Dharma.
I go for refuge to the Dharma,
And resolve with all beings.
and resolve with all beings.
I will penetrate the teachings.
I will penetrate the teachings,
And uncover oceans of wisdom.
and uncover oceans of wisdom.
I go for refuge to the Sangha.
I go for refuge to the Sangha,
And resolve with all beings.
and resolve with all beings.
I will seek peace and happiness for the many.
I will seek peace and happiness for the many,
And transform this world into Buddha lands unimpeded.
and transform this world into Buddha lands unimpeded.
Please remain standing just for another moment while I read our ancestor dedication. Let's see, what day of November is this? The 16th?
16th.
Oh, okay, thank you. On this 16th day of November 2025, we acknowledge that this land where our temple buildings stand has been the home of Native peoples, the Potawatomi, the Odawa, and the Ojibwe, the Council of the Three Fire Tribes, and also of Black Americans. We know that this neighborhood used to be a historically Black neighborhood during times of sanctioned racial segregation and oppression. For our own awakening and for the awakening of all life, may the benevolent energies of our meditation, chanting, and full presence at this service this morning extend to all beings on this planet and throughout time and space. May there be deepening of our interbeing. May peace prevail and war cease. Making 3 vows. then please return to your places now for another shorter period of meditation, about 5 minutes or so. Please join me in some simple stretching exercises to finish our meditation practice. Bright sun, a winter wind, and in the trees, the dry leaves make the sound of a river. Shh. And here we are on the cusp of something. Good morning, everyone. And nice to see all of you. There's a lot of people here this morning. Are any of you here for the first time? Oh, good. Oh, welcome. Well, thanks for joining us this morning. My name is Jagwa Kelly Davenport. I'm one of the Dharma teachers here in Ann Arbor. And I have a talk for you today. I think I even gave it a title. Let's see. How do you know if it's working? Sometimes people are curious, how folks in this get-up kind of came to the temple, and sometimes I'll get the question, well, what do you notice has changed in yourself if you've been doing this for several years now? And the how do you know if it's working question, on the one hand, is not a very important question, because we're not here to kind of achieve something in the biggest perspective. And on the other hand, it's quite an important question, because it can be a source of kind of calibration of practice and maybe even inspiration when you notice, I'm putting in some effort and I'm noticing that maybe things are a little bit easier in my life, or I'm a little bit more patient, or I have a little bit more wisdom. So I think in that sense, it is a helpful question. And I've been thinking about this because I decided that I want to train for a race. And I am not a runner. And so I've been thinking about this question a little bit because I'm maybe about a month or so into deciding this time, I'm really going to try to become a runner. And I already do some other types of physical training, but it's not running. And so I went online and I looked up a plan, couch to 5K. I knew this was a thing, right? And okay, I go to the gym several times a week. I lift weights, but that's not the same thing. So I knew that my cardio capability wasn't as good as it was going to need to be to run. And so I found this plan from the National Health Service in the UK, which seemed very pragmatic. Run 1 minute, walk 1 minute, repeat 8 times, and do it 3 times a week. And I thought, okay, I can do that. And at first, it doesn't seem like running for 1 full minute will be that hard. But if you haven't been a runner, it is surprisingly hard. About 30 or 40 seconds in, I'd be checking my watch. Oh, it's only halfway. But I noticed something interesting when I was doing it is maybe because I was having to pay so much attention to my body and my breathing, I was very aware of my surroundings. So I would get up in the morning and go, there's a park near my house. So I run there and back, walk. And I noticed, how cold was it? Was there actually like any kind of fog when I would breathe out? Or was it warm enough that there wasn't any fog yet? Or were the birds quite active because the sun was out, or was it a little cloudy that day and maybe they were more quiet? And there's also, right now, there's this massive flock of wild turkeys that live in my neighborhood, inexplicably. And so we would be on kind of the same schedule. So I would get up in the morning and I'd be like, okay, I know the turkeys are going to be here because this guy leaves bird seed out on the sidewalk for all the animals, and they like to come there in the morning and eat. So I would see the turkeys. So I had this little kind of routine. And I really was appreciating how the strenuousness of how much I had to work just to do this running practice made me so much more aware. And then over time, so the plan is you increase the difficulty in some way. Either you go try to run a little bit faster, you try to run a little bit longer, or you decrease your rest periods. So you shorten the amount of time in between that you're running and walking. So this is what I've been experimenting with for the last several weeks. And so I think in this case, to answer the question, how do you know if it's working? I've noticed that after the first few weeks, I actually started looking forward to going out in the morning because I really appreciated that time just to be by myself with my own mind, noticing things about the changing of the seasons. And then afterward, I'd feel kind of more awake and invigorated for the day. So I really liked that. And I think also, too, I was surprised to find that after the first maybe 3 or 4 weeks, I noticed this kind of big increase already in my ability to run a little bit farther. Suddenly, I could look at my watch and it had been 1.5 minutes, and I didn't even notice. I'm like, oh, that was faster than I thought. So that was kind of interesting. But my limits were expanding without even me noticing. And because I'm a little bit of an exercise science nerd, I was also impressed to read that when you're running or doing any other kind of physical activity, you're changing at the cellular level. So kind of maybe the only thing I remember from elementary school science class is the model of the cell, right? We all had to draw and label the parts. Do you remember the mitochondria? What is its job?
Power.
Powerhouse of the cell. Everyone remembers this. I don't know why. The mitochondria actually learns to produce more energy. That's amazing. Just from moving our bodies in a different way. I think there's some interesting parallels with our spiritual development in some of the physical kind of realm as well. So I see them as very related. So I want to talk a little bit today, kind of similarly with our Zen training, because we do refer to this as training, almost like an athletic pursuit in some ways. We're using our minds and bodies in a different way. We're trying to unify mind and body in a lot of the practices that we do. And we're challenging ourselves. So thinking about this question of how do we know if it's working? And there's sort of a maybe popular psychology term right now. Instead of looking for things that maybe are a little bit depressing, you're supposed to look for glimmers. Have you heard this term? I feel like there's all these articles around about it right now. Looking for glimmers. That's a way that you can take note of some of the things that are going well in your life. And we have a little bit of a term here, I think that's sort of akin to that. Dharma sparks. Sometimes we'll have a conversation at the breakfast table here. What are your Dharma sparks right now? What is the source of inspiration where you're finding some evidence of experiencing these Buddhist teachings in a practical context of your life? So we're going to talk a little bit about that too. So to frame this conversation, I'm going to bring in a theme that we've been working with in our training student program. So we have some formal training programs here for folks who want to commit to more practice in their lives and meet as a cohort and kind of study more of the teachings of Buddhism. And this semester we've been learning about bodhisattvas, which is probably a term most of you have heard. Yeah. So bodhisattva, sort of like two words together, is an enlightened being or a being in the process of becoming enlightened. And of course we have some physical representations of bodhisattvas. They're often depicted at the right and left hands of the Buddha if you see an altar in a Buddhist temple. In our Korean tradition, we have Kwanseum Posal here on the left and Chichang Posal on the right, two of the most most well-known bodhisattva figures, and I'll tell you a little bit more about them. But there's something interesting about the bodhisattva as this sort of archetype of practice that I find a bit of a paradox. And that is, on the one hand, the teaching of the bodhisattva ideal is do your utmost, right? And on the other hand, it is, and do it forever. Do your utmost and do it forever. How is this possible? So we're going to explore a little bit of maybe what on the surface seems a little bit like a paradox. Okay. So I have a brief reading that I'm going to share that was shared with our training students last weekend when we were talking about this, just to situate a little bit more context for this bodhisattva figure. So I'll read this first part. This is from a book about Jizo Bodhisattva, which is just the Japanese name for one of the bodhisattvas, by Jan Chozen Bays, who is a contemporary American Buddhist teacher. And she writes, a bodhisattva, which she translates from the Sanskrit as enlightenment being, is a sort of saint with one foot in the human realm and one in the realm of the divine, which in Buddhism is called nirvana. In Western or Christian terms, this is the longed-for state of oneness with the source of all existence, the ground of being. As a bodhisattva is about to cross the threshold into that realm, she looks back and sees clearly all those left behind who suffer as she once did. With her wisdom eye, she discerns the cause of their sorrow and harmful acts, which is ignorance. As compassion wells up in her heart, she turns back taking a vow not to merge with the wonder of the great mystery until every being has also crossed over out of needless suffering and been brought to freedom. So that's sort of the Bodhisattva project, if you will. There are many bodhisattvas who are revered in Buddhist countries. The most beloved is known in Japan as Kannon. She is called Avalokiteshvara in Sanskrit, Kuan Yin in China, Kwanseum Posal in Korea, and Chinrezig in Tibet. Like Jizo Bodhisattva, Kannon is an embodiment of compassion. Her name means she who hears the cries of the world. She responds to these cries with her 1,000 arms, each of which holds a tool to help with yet another form of human suffering. Jizo and Kannon are often linked and venerated together as a sacred pair, or as two of the 8 great bodhisattvas. Both have the ability to travel unharmed through the hell realms to rescue those who are trapped. Bodhisattvas are usually portrayed as masculine in form and energy, like Manjushri, who rides a lion and carries an upright sword to sever all delusions. But Jizo and Kannon both have strong feminine aspects, thus I have chosen to refer to Jizo with both male and female pronouns in this book. A person who is able to be aware and function simultaneously with both the huge awareness of the ground of being and also from the unique single body and mind they inhabit is called awakened. So there's that juxtaposition again of the relative and the absolute. So that gives you a little bit of context of some of the names you might have heard of bodhisattvas, a little bit about sort of this role that they play in Buddhist cosmology of this figure that has received, has had some kind of awakening experiences, and rather than move on to this sort of next phase, says, well, I'm actually going to stay and try to help everyone else. And this is a very key concept in the school of Buddhism that Zen is a part, Mahayana. So that really privileges this bodhisattva ideal of awakening all together, not just as individuals. And then the second part, which is a little bit shorter, that I wanted to share was from a book by another contemporary American Zen teacher, Ben Connolly, who was actually here reading from this book about a month ago. This is from Inside the Flower Garland Sutra. A person who aspires to awaken, so that everyone can awaken, has tasted, quote, the mind's first aspiration for awakening. This aspiration for awakening is the energy of bodhicitta, so it cultivates care for others as well. Rosa Parks once said, I would like to be remembered as someone who wanted to be free so other people would also be free. This bodhicitta of the bodhisattvas seems to be characterized by an utter lack of time limitations. The space at the edge of or outside of time has a special quality called Tathagata Garbha, the womb of the Buddha, the place where our Buddha nature is grown and developed, Tathagata Garbha. It points to the inherent capacity for and potential state of liberation of all sentient beings. Bodhisattvas do not dwell within the limits of time, do not have a time limit for their compassion or their pledge to heal the world. The point of the bodhisattva archetype is that we are all called to a compassion that is utterly limitless. As long as earth exists, as long as all beings exist, as long as acts and afflictions exist, so long will my vow remain. That's one example of the bodhisattva vow. So you can hear in some of those descriptions that pairing of utmost effort and then this timeless quality. So you have forever, is another way of putting it. And it's interesting if we look at maybe what might be being taught, if I can say that, in each of those kind of two halves of this teaching, and then thinking about what happens when they are put together in this context. So utmost effort. So if we take utmost effort as the teaching of the Bodhisattva, what are some things that we might be taking away from that? Going beyond what we think we are capable of. The sense that perhaps limitless compassion is possible and must be cultivated to bring it to fruition. That we must practice regularly, not sporadically. And that there are no expectations of an outcome or a reward. Now, if we only practice with that part of the teaching, what are maybe some of the downsides or challenges? Perhaps you might be thinking, well, how can you do your utmost effort without getting really tired? Right? A sense of balance maybe is a difficulty. Maybe a lack of perspective. If only we're thinking about utmost effort as the thing that we're trying to do. And maybe even a risk of self-centeredness. I am doing this utmost effort. So that could be a trap as well. So then bringing in the second part of you have forever has a little bit of a different flavor. What might be some of the things that we would take away from that? You don't need to worry about not having enough time. Just keep going. Don't burn yourself out or you can't go forever. And maybe that the biggest perspective possible on our contributions and interrelationships is what is important, to have the perspective of forever. And again, though, if we only practice with that half of this model, what might we fall into a trap of? Perhaps thinking, I'll start tomorrow. I have forever. Lack of consistency. Well, maybe I'll pick it up again. Maybe a lack of effort too. I have time. So I think that the real kind of brilliance of placing together what at first seemed like a paradox is actually the balance that is inherent in this Bodhisattva model. So kind of going back to the running, 1 minute of running, 1 minute of walking. You could go forever like that. So that's kind of what I've been thinking about in terms of the Bodhisattva ideal in something that we can hold on to as something we can actually begin to actualize or practice with. So I wanted to bring it down to a little bit of earthiness. And then for this other part, let's see, what did I say here? Oh yeah. So I guess getting back to the question of how do we know it's working? So glimmers of our Bodhisattva qualities. And I have a quote here too from another contemporary teacher, Donyo Burke, who runs a popular Zen studies podcast. And I thought that she summed it up really well. Trying to act like a Bodhisattva, even when we don't feel like one, challenges our attachment to self and teaches us about the truth of interdependence. Then, over time, we know our practice is on course when we feel more and more as if we and all beings are in the same boat. When beneficial action arises in us spontaneously, without prolonged consideration about what it's going to cost us or whether our offering will be worth it. So here we see how that Bodhisattva ideal is both a model and kind of a calibration. Maybe the next time that we notice that we feel this inclination to help or to do something that we see a situation calls for, and for whatever reason, we just do it. And we don't stop to analyze it or to think about what is the cost to us, as she put it, or worry about what the outcome might be. Then that is one answer to the question of how do we know if it's working? In my own experience, I think that these glimmers, if you will, of bodhisattva ideals showing up are things like not saying the same thing I would always say in the same situation. Just noticing, oh, I don't need to say anything. Noticing where I have some kind of agenda that I wasn't fully aware of when I think I'm being helpful. I think this shows up most often in my relationship with my husband. Sometimes I think, I'm helping. But really my agenda is, if I actually checked in, it's like, I would like it if you didn't have this problem so that you would meet my needs. That's not really a compassionate, that's not really a compassionate stance. But I'm surprised to find how often that is the case. You had a bad day and I'm so sorry about that, but I really need you to do the dishes. So just noticing, wow, there's there's something a little, just a subtle agenda driving this. The other phrase that comes to mind is from our poem that we have in our liturgy book called The Song of Meditation. And it has a line in there that says, "Be a little dumb, pure, and innocent to enter this world." And I think that if I notice in myself the times where I show up to a situation, maybe there's factions, there's an argument at work, this person thinks this or this person thinks that, and I don't know, let me see, be a little dumb, pure, and innocent. And I think that is another place, if I can notice where I don't show up so ready to take a side and to have an opinion, then I think that's a little bit of wisdom too. So those are some of my experiences with trying to see where this bodhisattva teaching is something I can grasp for myself. And I'm curious though, for those of you who have some kind of practice, maybe it's not even necessarily a Buddhist practice or meditation practice, but I'm curious to hear from you all now if you have an answer for yourself of, how do I know it's working? So we can have a little discussion about it. And we'll bring the microphone around to you if you have a thought to share. Thompson, do you want to do it? Thank you.
It's on.
Well, for one, I have a lot fewer answers than I did before. I have a lot more questions. And so there's just generally a better cultivated sense of curiosity in how I approach a situation. And I think another thing too with it is I spend a lot of time thinking about it. I mean, almost for me, like I've in my mind created a ninth full step to the path. And it's right grip, and the idea of constantly, inquiring with myself, am I holding on to this the right way? Is this a healthy attachment? Is it helpful? And really, do I have literally like the right grip on how I'm feeling about it? And those are two ways I see that I've cultivated a mind of better clarity, but it's all just a process. So, but asking more questions is helpful.
Thank you.
I think that taking your practice off the cushion is one of the most important pieces of maturation in my practice, in my realization of these truths that we're trying to internalize. And so I find myself seeing evidence for my insights that I've gained in contemplation, in meditation, in practice, in practical life, more often. when it pops into my head, this is good, but don't be too attached to it. That's kind of like the grip thing. It's good, but don't grab on too hard. Or, hey, I see that, this is impermanent and I'm okay with that. The littlest interactions throughout daily life, as the teachings pop into those, as I can relate what I've learned in the practice to real life more and more, that brings me a sense of true understanding and peace. I think that is a sign of my progress.
Good morning. So thank you for your talk. And I was just reflecting as you were speaking about my practice, and before I had names for things and before I knew the word bodhisattva, I was thinking about my family of origin. And I don't think it's really a party game, but if you're talking intimately with people, you might have a conversation like, what did your family of origin teach you about what you were supposed to be? And somebody asked me that once, and it just came out. I knew right away. So in my family of origin, I was taught from being a child, it doesn't matter whether you fail at something or succeed at something, but Laura, the most important thing you can do is look around, find the most interesting thing that there is, and do it the most difficult way possible. So I'm going somewhere with this. So while you were speaking, I was thinking about how, I got that from my family of origin, and I've lived my life without worrying too much about whether something is going to work out or not. But I definitely have put effort into what is the most interesting thing out there, and I'm going to try it in the most unique way that I can. And so I guess I've been sitting here trying to think about, and so what are the implications of that lesson I learned as a child to my practice today? And there are implications, and I could hear in what you were speaking about how I can sort of bridge that idea that I learned from being a little kid. What's also interesting is that as my dad was passing away, he was not a Buddhist, but as he was passing away, we would have a lot of conversations about Buddhism. And I remember right before he passed away, I said, Dad, you really are a bodhisattva, that this is really the truth of what you are and how you've lived. And I guess I'm realizing now that without him realizing that there were practices going on in my family that have led me to where I am. So I just appreciate your talk this morning. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Hello. My practice is very new, so I don't necessarily have a lot of the insights you might get to glimmers as you're talking about. But certainly, one thing that I have noticed is it's brought a lot of awareness to all those times when I'm not being conscious, when I'm not being present. Sometimes in the day I found, wow, I haven't made a conscious decision for like 5 hours. Just reacting to things and noticing when you're just chasing those developing thoughts or those feelings of passion. And so if you feel like you're maybe not making progress, I mean, even that alone is a start.
Good morning. I end up arriving at a lot of visualizations when I meditate, and one of them that I especially like is with this phrase that came, meditation creates space. And I visualize into the first picture that came from the James Webb telescope that was like the expansive universe. And so I'm like, I'm going really into it, and I just keep saying this over and over again: meditation creates space. And the space part is that time really stretches my need to react, my feeling of urgency. Lots of those things are like they just space out so that I take care of children for my job. And so when I'm interacting with them, I've noticed over time that my need to jump in and like do something about this has really relaxed, and I can kind of like feel time expand in each moment. So. Hi. So I'm not sure if this is what you're really asking, but the question of is it working? I guess it would be like it's working if the it that you've added in your life, if it's helping you experience less angst, sadness, fear, frustration, and you find yourself with that new it, having more smiles, laughter, calm. I think it's a good measure of thermometer.
Good morning. Good morning. So, is it working? I noticed that it's kind of twofold for me. I tend to be more compassionate in my thoughts and actions towards everybody else. Sometimes when I'm at work, it's a lot of energy we have to use, a very physical job. So sometimes it turns out to be I use anger a lot, and sometimes I can come off the wrong way to some people. But I noticed in my meditation and me reading the Dhammapada and the Pali Canon it takes me an awareness. I take a step back and think before I act more often than not. And also another fold of that is it loosens my grip on attachments to outcomes. So if anything goes wrong or it doesn't go to plan, instead of being angry, throwing a fit or whatever, but then it is what it is. That tends to come out more often than not. So.
Hello.
Hi.
So a couple of years ago, I was laughing when you were talking about running because I started really getting into exercise, eating well, really obsessed with it. And I was talking with a friend and I said, I just don't understand why other people can't do this. Like, just get in there, you do it, you got to put in all your effort, get in there. I don't understand. Why is it so hard for everybody? But the reality is I had some pretty major life events a couple of years ago, some hard times that pushed me into that. And the friend said, had those things not happened to you, what would you be doing today? And I said, probably the same thing I was doing before. And I felt terrible because I just had this feeling inside of me of why won't these other people do this amazing thing that I'm doing? And I just don't get it. So it really opened me up to start thinking about what are other people doing? What are the other challenges that they're having? I was so focused on myself and all the amazing things that I thought that I was doing that I just ignored the fact that everybody else had so many things going on in their life. And that how do you know it's working piece to it? It's like through this time now, for example, my mom told me recently about someone who, can you believe that they did this and all these terrible things? And I mean, they're just tearing their partner apart. It's just awful. And the very first thing that instantly came to my head is, I wonder what they're going through. And I wonder what their partner's going through. And I wonder what their partner said. And I wonder what they said. And I wonder how they can resolve whatever they're working on, if they can. So it was this moment of, it's working, because I immediately felt that feeling of empathy and wonder of what they might be going through. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We have time for maybe one more, right?
Thank you. I think I sometimes notice there's a couple things to kind of calibrate with. And one of them is I sometimes will think to myself that I'm already here. And it's kind of twofold. Sometimes it's literal. I'm like traveling to get here today, for example. Oh man, you know, this route was like 3 minutes faster, I'm 2 minutes faster. It's like, really, it's like, you know what, like I'm already here in the sense that the more I'm concerned about where I'm going, the less attention I'm paying to where I am right now. And then there's the metaphorical sense of like attainment, where I'm already here, there's nothing more I have to do if I just pay attention to now. And like, there's no like breathing exercises I have to do, or not sitting. You're already here, whether or not you like it. And you can embrace that. And the last bit is kind of unknown, which if I go into a situation and I'm not boxing things up so much, or assuming I have answers, and allowing myself to kind of recognize that concepts are concepts rather than, it's like an epistemology rather than a concrete fact, that it's a useful guide. Thank you.
Thank you. Thomas, I think there was one person in the back, and then we can, yeah.
I would say, for me personally, and I guess this is probably going to sound like some same answer, but for me, I know that it's working when I find that I'm not so concerned with whether it's working. You know, which is to say that there's some sense in which there was something out of balance that said to me, you need to be doing something else. And there's a seeking for something else, and there was maybe a finding of something else, and there was an implementation of whatever that something else was. And so when whatever that impetus was, that bhavana perhaps, that says, you need to be doing something that's not this, is less there, it's like, oh, well, this is working. Because that's what needed to go away. It was, well, some part of me feels this is not where it needs to be. And when that blinking red light in my brain stops blinking, well, it's working. But yeah, to say something a bit more concrete about it, it's sort of that, reminds me what it means to me is sort of to penetrate the teachings. It's a sense in which here's a list of all these things that need to get done. And there's a list of matters in which need to happen. And it isn't as though, although had you asked me at the beginning, and then like, okay, let's do these things to check off this list, and now I've got a list of things that are checked off. In my experience, what is happening is more like what happens if you write something maybe in pen, and you leave it sitting there for a really long time. And after years and years and years, you go back to that page and say a journal or something, and you'll notice that the ink is kind of faded. It's like, it isn't as though I'm going down and checking things off the list, it's that the list starts to kind of dissolve. And it's like, that's what I mean, like the clinging to it, people are talking about this, oh, it's gotta be this way. It's just not as important that things have to be that way. And there's like an openness, there's an emptiness through which things can change and move and flow that wasn't there. It's gotta be like this, like that. It's gotta be, it's just, and so it's a couple of ways of saying the same thing, I think, but it isn't that so much that that I find a satisfying answer to the question as much as the question just sort of dissolves.
Thank you. Okay. Well, I think time runs short. Thank you all so much for your contributions. A lot of wonderful examples in the room of places that you find yourself checking in about this question. The question dissolves, maybe a different question down the road, I don't know. So thank you for that. I guess, maybe the only other thing I would add is when I think someone said something now, I can't remember which person that's made me think of this, but there's a kind of funny phrase that Haji says that I think Sunam used to say to you, which is you can't get kicked out of the universe. Was that something he would say? You can't get kicked. Oh, maybe it was you were talking about the telescope. You can't get kicked out of the universe. And that's another one of those wonderful Zen paradoxical sayings, because sometimes you might think, man, I really wish I could. And on the other hand, how grateful that I can't. This material that we all have to work with in our lives, this is it. This is it. So please continue with your exploration of whatever that looks like in the material of your life. So thank you. Okay, so I think now it's time for some announcements.
And there's a microphone.
Yes.
There is, just for you.
Thank you.
Well, hello everyone again, because I probably saw you for sure. And there are lots of new people here today. I'm really glad to see you. I'm Vince, or someone here, Vince on the street, as you say. Yeah, so I got some announcements for you. Actually, one of the things we do is to ask who's here for the first time today, just so I guess we already did this.
Oh, again.
You're still welcome.
We look forward to seeing you on a regular basis. We have several things going on at the temple I can tell you about. A lot of them we normally have on clipboards out here in the foyer, and they are kind of moved aside for a special program we've got going, which I'll get to in a minute. Saturdays, we have Together Action, we call it. We come here and work on the temple, the grounds. For example, yesterday we raked up a bunch of leaves together and have a nice toss together afterwards over tea. And that's 3 to 5 on Saturdays, if you'd like to come. And then, of course, the public services are offered here at 10 a.m. every Sunday. And the second Sunday of every month has a family service, which was last week. The next one coming up is December 7th. And for those of you that don't know, it's a special service where we have a Dharma talk that's geared to children. And we have half the time for kids, and they go off and do their thing, and we do our adult things. Yoga with David Black, who's been here for a long time, is a great yoga instructor. Is meeting here with us on Tuesdays from 6:30 to 8. We also have a Lotus Sutra study group with Chijong Cliff Brown here. Let's say hello. And meets every Tuesday from 7 to 8 p.m., both in person and on Zoom. We've got another program that's new, a Lotus Sutra study group, Chijong class. Shamatha Sayarshul leads this normally on Mondays from 6:30 to 8 here in this room too. But this class this week will not meet tomorrow because he will be out of town. Our next day of mindfulness will be offered on November 28th. And that's sort of the day after Thanksgiving to rewind and come back together and enjoy some peace. our next overnight meditation class, which is similar, Friday night to Saturday. The day of mindfulness is just the day of the 28th, or Friday. The overnight one is on December 5 to 6. So that's coming up soon. And we have an online Sangha meeting every Sunday night from 7 to 8:30 p.m. And the Zoom link is on our website. So the other big thing that we have coming up now, which you may have seen on the way in, is from the Sangha Care Committee. And we are supporting 2 important local initiatives. And we're going to be collecting and assembling items for food gatherers, kids' lunches for a love program, and for emergency kits for the seniors in Washington County. And please, it says here, bring all donations by November 23rd at 10 a.m. So that's next week. It'd be great if you guys could rally some time and effort. And actually, we do have sign-up sheets too, which can help us sort of plan for things. We have the 2 programs you can choose from. And actually, I have sort of like the details for the 2 programs. So, for the seniors, we need the following items: bottled water, first aid kits, flashlights with batteries, small tissue packets, toothbrushes, toothpaste, and a weekly pill box. And let's see, and then the kids' lunches for love, we need non-perishable main dishes, which are like pop-top soup, pasta meal, tuna and chicken salad kit. Side snacks, which are low sodium, hopefully, and sugar preferred. It's low sodium preferred. Dried fruit, applesauce, fruit cup, crackers, and bottled water. So when making these donations, please bring 5 of each item that you choose. Now, I may need to ask for clarification. It says 5 of each item you choose. I thought we would choose 5 items off the list and bring 1 of each. 5 and 5, like, okay. So you choose 1, and then you bring 5 items. And then, so there's the flyer with this information in the lobby. And also, if you know anyone who might need a basket themselves, please let us know. And I think that's it for the announcements. Does anyone have any?
The Recovery Dharma will meet in the historic Buddha Hall, big yellow building next door. I'm not quite sure how you're going to get there. Can we go through the front? Can we go through the way?
Yeah,
Yes.
you just have to step carefully.
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
there's a
You can go the normal way, but you're not going to be able to leave and walk the street the normal way. I already know that.
You can also go in through the back door.
Yeah.
The basement.
Oh, and it's at noon. I forgot that part.
Thank you. And let's see, a couple other notes that I want to bring up. We're grateful to everyone that's responded to the fall fundraising campaign. And we invite those who have not yet participated to join in. And we so far have raised $14,700 towards a goal of $25,000. And so, as you know, the temple is entirely supported by your generous donations. And there's also a fishbowl in the foyer for monetary donations, as well as an electronic credit card device. So, it's great to be here on a day like this with all you guys. And I will hopefully see you out here in the lobby for tea.
Excellent. So we will end with the 4 great Bodhisattva vows. Please repeat after me. All beings, one body.
All beings, one body.
I vow to liberate.
I vow to liberate.
Blind passions, one root.
Blind passions, one root.
I vow to terminate.
I vow to terminate.
Dharma gates, one mind.
Dharma gates 109.
I vow to penetrate
I vow to penetrate
the great way of Buddha.
the great way of Buddha.
I vow to realize.
I vow to realize.
And Maung, should we put away mats and cushions? Just leaving the ones touching the carpet. So we're going to stand and, as per usual, smooth our mats and cushions, and then we'll end with 3 formal bows facing the altar. And then before you leave the meditation hall, if I could have assistance in putting away mats and cushions, the ones touching the carpet at the center of the room can stay where they are. The mats and cushions on this side of the room get stacked neatly on the stage. You can see some that are already up there as a model. And on this side of the room, the cushions go in the back corner the mats go in the back corner and the cushions go on the red cubbies. So, thank you.